This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
You're in a good place now. Relax, breathe, smile. You've entered into your element, the home of origin, the home of intelligence and beauty, where relevant topics are discussed for what you think counts and where superior is the norm. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. You know, we're talking about a factor that seems to plague all of us. It seems to plague many of us at different times in our life. And a lot of times we don't even realize what's really happening. You know, the big deal is about finding our self-worth. You know, where do we find our own self-worth? How do we figure that out? And in our lifestyle today, especially with all the digital age and the media, it can be hard. It can be difficult because we start looking at what everybody else is doing, quite honestly. And that's one of the biggest things that I find is that I start falling into that trap of looking at what everybody else is doing on social media or following their pictures on Instagram or just making a certain feeling or judgment call about my life because I feel that everybody's life has to be better than my own. And so let's begin tonight's conversation with the concept that I like to call the everyone else quotient. The everyone else quotient.
Everyone else does it.
Everybody else is better than me.
But, Mom, and why can't I go play in the construction zone with all the rusty nails? Everybody else is doing it.
Exactly. And they all look like they're happy because they all have a cocktail in their hand.
Yeah, and then they've all got patches over their eyes, and, you know. And,
patches.
Because remember, you
don't need no stinking patches.
Don't go play in the construction zone. You'll put out an eye.
We don't need no stinking patches, Bill.
Nobody ever put out an eye, but, you know, that's just the way moms are, and I love you, Mom.
It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye.
Right.
So let's talk about this. Like, a lot of times we don't realize that we're the person that puts us last.
Yes.
Isn't that funny? Like, we always think everybody else is kind of like, you know, pushing us out or making us feel inferior, but we're actually the ones doing it.
Well, and I can only talk about, in my case, I think I do it not because I don't think I have any self-worth, but because I genuinely care, especially those closest to me. I genuinely care about their well-being. So I put their well-being ahead of mine. But I do that out of love.
I think well-being, though, is a little different, though, than self-worth.
Okay.
I mean, in my theory, because I think well-being, I guess the way, like, I was thinking about categorizing this is that well-being, yeah, like, you put their life ahead of yours. Like, you take a bullet for them, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, but also, too, I mean, like, if it means the difference between, like, going home watching TV or, you know, like I'll call it my girlfriend, you know, hey, I'm heading home, you know, do you need anything? Yeah, could you stop and get this? Well, okay, so I'm missing, you know, the NCAA basketball tournament.
Oh, well, that's just being considerate.
But I'll do that for her.
That's being considerate, putting someone else's needs first.
That's what I had in mind.
Yeah, that's putting someone else's needs first. That's not a bad thing. Okay. I mean, you don't want to do that all the time. I mean, because, you know, who are you? You know what I mean? There's sometimes our needs come first.
But are you talking more along the lines of, you know, this may be an extreme example, but kind of like the battered wife syndrome?
I'm actually talking about how a lot of times we don't realize our own self-worth. We see everybody else's life as grandiose. We see everybody else's talents as being better than ours.
Okay.
We feel like God bestowed these talents on other people that are so amazing that here we are, just little Bill, little Ashley, just trying to scrape by, you know? And I think a lot of people fall into this category in our life because you get a little overwhelmed. You see everybody else, you know, donning the incredible outfits or the jewels or the perfect family or the perfect household. Or you see, you know, your buddy John that's always got, you know, the car's always washed. It's a sports car. It's 2015.
It's like, who are the neighbors to the Simpsons?
What?
The Simpsons neighbor, you know, Bart or Homer Simpson's neighbor. What's his name?
Oh, I can't remember.
I can't remember off the top.
But yeah, Ned Flanders.
There you go, Ned Flanders. Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, he's kind of religious, though. I mean, so that would be kind of the extremely religious crowd. Yeah, that has the perfect family that they all pray together and that kind of sort of thing. Yeah, and some people look at that and go, "Oh my God, that family's the best family ever." Like, I have nothing compared to that. You know, my kid barely comes home. You know, my other kid won't sit at the table without having his headphones on. You know, I can't get everybody to sit at the table, but the people next door, man, they got it all. They got it all together, you know.
And they have a unicorn in the backyard, you know, living under a rainbow. You know.
Oh yeah, totally, all the time. And you're over there just looking at the dog poop in the backyard and hoping you don't step in it.
Right.
You know, you're like, gosh, look at all the landmines in my backyard.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
And look at their perfect arbor backyard with their pool and their hot tub and their lagoon pool. And yeah, a lot of times we make, you know, decisions on our self-worth not only based on what other people have, but based on what we think other people do. So we see everyone else as having everything we want. We always feel like we're at a deficit, right? Like, we always see everybody else thinking that they all have all the talents, the skills, the ability, all the connections, you know? And there we are thinking, man, I don't even know why I bother. I mean, they got it all in the bag. I'm just over here just kind of, you know, I'm spitballing it together, and it doesn't seem like I'm doing that well.
Well, in that case, then, I think I have gone through, you know, maybe like bouts of it. I mean, I don't think I'm that way all the time because I'm fairly confident in who I am and my abilities. But like, for example, in the past, when I was an insurance agent, and you know, let's say that I applied for a manager position, and so did someone else, and I knew that the other person. I mean, he was like the walk on water, you know, type, the you know, company rock star, you know, and we applied for it, and I knew he was going to get it.
Yeah,
and maybe that attitude came through in the interview because sure enough, he got it.
He got it,
and I wasn't terribly disappointed because I just knew it.
You just knew that it was going to happen, though, because you're like, he's the company rock star. He's got it all down. You know, he's got it all together. And here I am.
Of course, it turns out later on he was fired because over sexual harassment. But you know, that's a different story.
That's a different show. We'll be talking about that another time, about sex in the workplace on Perspectives. Yeah, no, but I have a lot of times where I view someone else's life as maybe particularly better, sometimes more fulfilling. You know, like, I'll see things in a certain way, and a lot, it's all based on perception. Now, let's get that true. You know, the reason why I named this show Perspectives is because perspective is denoted within fact, within truth. Perception is how we make things in our own mind.
It's your opinion, basically.
It's our own opinion, mostly with no knowledge, no truth, no evidence. And a lot of it is a comparison scenario. We have perceptions based on our comparisons of ourselves compared to other people without the knowledge that we really need. You know, like you and I, we could walk into a store and we see a woman there, you know, she's got the, you know, the Chanel bag or the Hermes bag or whatever with the tiny little Pomeranian and the gold diamond watch and all this stuff, and you make this decision that she's a really wealthy woman, she's got it all together. You have no idea. I mean, the watch could be fake, the dog could be stuffed, for God's sakes. I mean, you don't really know what's going on.
She could be one of those $100,000 millionaires.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we make those decisions, but we don't only make them on material wealth, we make them on talent. We make them on inner wealth. Like, oh, that person's got all the talent. Oh, that person's just so successful. You know, oh, that person's loved by everybody. That person has all these friends. Their life must be amazing. They must be invited to parties every day. And you know how that is. Like, New Year's is a good representation of that, right? Where everybody's out there. Oh, are you invited to a New Year's party? You going to a New Year's party? Whose New Year's party are you going to? And everybody that wasn't invited to a New Year's party is sad. Absolutely sad.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's true.
Because nobody likes me.
Nobody likes me, and I'm not going to a party. And then you have all these other people comparing. And Christmas parties are a good definition of that, too. How many Christmas parties were you invited to last year? How many Christmas parties?
Like we're keeping score, you know? Like put up a tick mark for every one you got invited to.
Oh, yeah, and you got those same people that'll post comments or text you, oh, I'm exhausted. 4 Christmas parties in one night, 5 tomorrow.
And all the selfies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. at 5 tomorrow, and you're like, I haven't even been invited to a Christmas party. I don't consider the library inviting me a real party.
Right.
Being that there would be no alcohol and all. So, when we're viewing everybody else's life as better and more fulfilling, we have a tendency of doing this everyone else quotient, meaning that everyone else has it better than us. Seeing everyone else as God's gifts, all the gifts that they have, all their talents, all their gifts from God seem to be so much more amazing than we ever have. We see people's talents sometimes, and you know what I'm talking about. Like, I've met people where just by hanging out with them for a few minutes, I'm like, oh my God, these people have it all together. Oh my God. And I start feeling like lesser. Or I just walk into the situation not realizing what's really going on. And so when you finally leave the situation later on, you're like, well, was I chopped liver? What was I doing over here about myself? I was over there just like screwing up.
Well, you're not chopped liver because you would never eat chopped liver.
Ooh, yeah. Liver's not my friend. I mean, I love my liver in my body. I love you, liver. Please hold up, liver.
I love my liver too, yes.
Yes. But I'm not going to eat liver.
No, I don't like the liver either. Ugh.
God bless us all. Yes, was somebody else having a pound of liver to eat? No, I'm not going to be. I'm not going to worry about their other self and other quotient. But yeah, we see other people's gifts, other people's abilities, other people's attitude as being all that, and sometimes we put ourselves on the back burner. And I think that's what we're talking about tonight, as well as realizing what we offer. Because I think that we have this self-defeating prophecy. And for everybody listening tonight, we've all had this before. I'm not saying that we go through this every day, day in and day out. But I am saying that there are times of the year, for women maybe differently, for men maybe differently, but we go through these cycles of sometimes not being able to see what we truly offer and actually are self-defeating about what we have to give.
You're not talking about that time of the month, are you?
No, well, I mean, you could be. I mean, a lot of times...
Well, you just said women and going through cycles, so,
Oh, yeah, okay, I got you. Well, but yeah, sometimes we go through these, like, cyclical situations where we also might find ourselves in the midst of the same type of people where we tend to lose our ability to see our worth. There are people that you can be around that can inspire you for the negative to feel like you don't have anything.
Sure.
Have you been around those people where it's like every time it's just weird?
Yep.
It's like, man, I knew I was like in Bill's case, I knew I was a producer, but for about 2 hours around these people, I forgot that I had a job. You know what I mean? I forgot that I do this, and I've been around some of those people where you're just like, what happened to me? I just got rolled over by a steam engine and came out the other side, drove myself home, and then went, well, what did I do that for?
Yeah, it's like you come home like a puppy dog, whipped puppy dog,
I'm sad.
Tail tucked and ears flattened back.
Yeah, it's like I don't like this at all.
Roll up in a fetal position, with the bonbons and
the fetal position. No fetal position here. Just drink a bunch of wine and wake up with a hangover.
Oh yeah. There's your cure for a lot of things on this show. Just get drunk and wake up with a hangover,
and then you'll feel all happy.
Well, good night, folks. Show's over.
Because you can't even think straight. Because that's all you can do is just smile and grin. Because that's all you can do. Stay tuned. We return to be talking about what we have to offer and understanding that self-defeating prophecy. Perspectives. Your host, me, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back in 2 shakes.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives with Ashley Burgess. The water's warm and there's a swim-up bar. Glass of perspective, anyone? Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. You know, we're talking about the self-worth factor. You know, this factor is so important in our life when we're trying to establish a beautiful and authentic lifestyle. You know, right before the break, we were talking about the everyone else quotient. You know, the tendency of looking at how everyone else has it better. You know, everyone else's gifts from God are way more immensely more successful and awesome and amazing and can provide so much more success than my life. You know, seeing everyone else as having everything, seeing everyone else as having a better, more fulfilling life, and not being able to really see the forest for the trees. And, you know, I'd like to talk about the concept of what do we offer. And, you know, there's a whole concept of that self-defeating prophecy. You know, what do I offer to the world? And I think it's interesting because in this situation, when we're in that self-defeating prophecy, when we're in there, when we've kind of gone from the everyone else quotient to now looking into ourselves going, well, what do I have to offer? When we get there, we don't realize in the beginning that we're constantly putting ourselves last. We do this constantly. Like, nobody else has to do it for us because we do it on our own. I mean, we are our worst enemy sometimes. I mean, we are the ones that are first to judge ourselves on I can't do it, first to judge ourselves as something that's not going to happen. Yep. I had a client come in the other day, wrote her first book, and we've gone through a lot of work together, okay? A lot of work.
And if you listeners out there could have just seen the look on Ashley's face, the words "a lot of work" don't even begin to describe it.
We've done a lot of work, a lot of soul searching, okay? And so she's in a really great place, and we got her to finish the book, and everything was great. And then all of a sudden, here comes in the self-defeating prophecy. Okay, well, you know, Ashley, I know that you think I should do a book signing and all, but, you know, I don't think anybody's going to show up.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, what if nobody shows up?
What if nobody shows up? Oh, well.
Oh, well, but that's hard. That's hard. I mean, seriously. And then you start thinking, and then the same person looks at me and goes, you know, I went to a Chicken Soup for the Soul book signing years ago. There must have been like 7,000 people there. I go, yeah, I think his name's Jack Canfield, and I think he only wrote like 20 bestsellers before that, and also after he published his first few books, ended up being taken on by one of the biggest publishing companies in the world, and had quite millions and millions of dollars behind the advertising on that. And I do respect what he does for sure. I think he's a great writer and an amazing speaker. However, you know, you're not even comparing yourself to the same league at this point. I mean, like, sure, if I have millions of dollars and I have all this money to push forward a book sales, there's going to be thousands of people at the book signing, but this is okay that there might not be thousands of people. There might be 10. But we have to go through this. And she was literally putting herself last. Like, I'm just not going to do this because it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Because everything I do is not that good. And I think anytime we get to that level of actually getting past the point of seeing everybody else doing something and actually create something of our own, we finally get to that point where we can create our own thing, which is so great because we actually finally got over that hump and believe that we can actually do something. We can actually create something. So we create this thing, and we're so proud of our creation, but then we get stumped again because we start wondering, what if our creation is not accepted by the world? What if our creation is belittled? What if there's nobody there to see our creation? And we've created all this, and then, because when we create this stuff, what happens? We have a tendency of putting our self-worth in the creation.
Wrapping them up and where you can't separate the two.
And it's hard to see. It's hard to see the difference because you have self-worth. In this case, is the creation, which is the book in this case.
Well, and I was going to say, I mean, you know, in a way, I don't blame someone for feeling that way because if you're going to create something, part of you has to go into it. I mean, it's your baby, all right? And if someone rejects your creation, in a way, they're rejecting you, or at least that's the thought process behind it, I think.
Oh, I agree, and I've been in that process before. You know, I mean, I've written 3 books, and I know how it is to go through the process. I've developed all kinds of things. You know, I've had it where we're going in looking for corporate sponsors for our show. You know, where somebody doesn't want to pay you, but they'll do a trade out or whatever they want to do, and you're like, wait a second, we have our product, and you start. It becomes a process of dealing with you again. It goes back to you because you feel that this is a representation of you, which it is. And that again goes back to the fact of it being hard to reestablish the self-worth based on the fact that you've created something, you've put it out there for society to consume, and then at what point in time do you look at this consumption as being good? Do you look at the consumption as being minimal? Do you look at the fact that maybe you were slighted? Do you continue to keep pounding the pavement, or do you retreat back? And I think it's interesting because there's some people out there that can, and I'm not being a jerk about this. There's some people out there that the products they're selling aren't that good. Okay, they're just not. I'm just being honest with you. There's so many holes and fallacies in the logic. I can't believe they're able to sell it. But they are the most amazing sellers. I mean, they hustle.
And that's the key right there. I mean, and I can attest to this. Not everybody is natural at selling things. And I think it takes a particular talent.
I think so too, but I think it also goes back to the worth factor. I really do, because I think that people that are able to sell anything of themselves, now not just a regular product.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so like if you're just working for a company or you're a sales organization for whatever company, it's not your. That's one thing, and that's cool that you can sell. But I'm talking about if you can sell a product that you made and represent it and sell it, then I think that you've actually gotten over the self-worth issue and you're able to make something happen.
You know, and Ashley, this might go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it relates to what you're talking about. Don't you think that this issue of self-worth, it begins in our childhood?
Oh, yes.
And I think that's why it's so important to teach our children, self-esteem, self-worth. Now, I'm not one of those people that thinks that you have to give trophies just for participation.
I agree.
Because, that kind of cheapens the experience, I think. I think.
Oh, yeah, everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
Because everybody who showed up.
I think it's it's good to teach healthy competition, okay? However, think about it. We've all gone through this in high school, okay? For the boys, okay? Who's the kid we all look up to? He's the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
6 foot tall, blonde, blue eyed, jaw cut out of granite, shoulders in 2 different zip codes, muscles on top of muscles, right? And then, for the girls, it's the head cheerleader, who's supermodel gorgeous, hair and makeup just so, big boobs, legs for days.
Right.
Right. And how can you possibly, compete with that?
Exactly.
And you might as well not even try.
Right.
So if you get that attitude in as a child, it is real difficult to overcome it as an adult, I think.
I think so too. And I think a lot of times parents don't realize that their kid has a self-esteem issue. Because, we're kids, and I was about to say we're good at, and I still find myself as a child. Children and myself, everybody's good at the fact of hiding some of their true feelings when they're around family. And I've dealt with children in my practice as well where they are completely out of their element at school. They feel completely judged. All the girls, especially in this situation, because I don't at this time don't have any boy clients. They're all girls or
right.
Of the children's age, and they see all these other girls that have all this that they don't have.
Yep.
And so they don't say that though when they get home. Okay, they don't talk about that to mom and dad because they don't want to look stupid. They don't want to stand out and be like, "Mom, Dad," And so the sad thing is they hold all that in, and then they go to school and see it all over again every single day. And I've even had clients too that come in and they'll tell me about things like, older clients that'll tell me about how their mom always read Vogue or Glamour, Bazaar, and how mom would be,
yeah.
Oh yeah, and how mom would be like, "This is what a real woman looks like." And they can remember.
Barf! Oh my God!
And they can remember.
Really?
Oh yeah. I've had several clients where mom was in a bad state of affairs, and Bill is hitting his head on the microphone. And it's true, bad state of affairs, people in bad spaces in their life, and, they make comments, and they don't think about the comments they're making, and all of a sudden the child has all kinds of issues after that.
Well, and for girls especially, Barbie. I'd read somewhere where if Barbie were a real person, it would be impossible, like 6'2" and like 42 double D breasts and impossible long legs,
20 waist.
Yeah, 20 waist. Yeah, so something that's just impossible, right?
Right.
Which I mean, it's a toy. I mean,
yeah, but I honestly, if I had a kid, honestly,
but
I grew up with Barbies myself, and I've heard parents recently talking about how they will never give their kid a Barbie.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Because they just say it's not right. And I grew up with Barbies too, and I think that I grew up with self-worth issues. Okay, I know I did. I mean, I've gone through psychotherapy before. I mean, you know what I mean? In order to be in my position, you have to go through therapy, and you have to do hours, and you have to be, you have to figure out your problems before you can help other people figure out theirs, right? But I've been there where you're looking at everybody, and you're more of the tomboy, and your friend is like,
which for a teenage girl is the worst thing possible.
And your friend is like the goddess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Greek goddess, you know, that everybody goes, oh, so-and-so so beautiful.
Of course, you don't know how much money, she spends on, coloring her hair extensions, makeup, tanning bed.
You have no idea about that because you're not looking at that, though. You're just looking at perfection.
Yeah.
This is perfection, and then that's you. You know what I mean? That's how you look at it, Okay, and it's crazy. It's like looking at Barbara Walters' mirror. All your friends have the Barbara Walters mirror, and you have the crime scene mirror. Right? I mean, everybody else looks amazing. They don't have one pore. They're flawless. Barbara Walters, you know how she looks. I mean, they probably use a fan to move the hair. And there you are, like, at a crime scene murder victim thing where you're looking at it and there's, like, blue, iridescent, not good lighting. And every single thing is right there for you to see. So when we return, we'll be talking more about what do they offer, what do I offer, and our self-defeating prophecy. Stay tuned because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Back in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight we're talking about the concept of finding your own self-worth. And I think a lot of us are all in different spaces when it comes to self-worth. Some of us are closer to attainment of understanding and discovery. Some of us are still trying to figure out what we have to offer the world, whereas some people keep going in and out of a cyclical situation where you have self-worth, you lose self-worth, and you get it back. And so we're talking about tonight about how we can keep that all the time. And right before the break, we were talking about, what do I offer? The self-defeating prophecy. And, first off is that we always put ourselves last. It's the last strategy. We always give ourselves this no strategy. We're at the last. We're the last one. We're looked on the worst by ourselves. And a lot of times we overlook all of our strengths. And that's part of putting ourselves last is because we don't actually think we have any strengths.
Yeah, and I think like we were saying in the last segment, if you grow up with self-esteem and self-worth issues, it's you carry that with you into your adulthood. And here's the thing: everyone has a talent at something. And it could be as an artistic, it could be street smart, type of talent. You could be good at, I don't know. You could be
good at anything, but you don't even look at it though.
Right, and so if you think that you don't have any talents, then you don't develop those talents that you have.
You don't.
And so you kind of go through life, I think, thinking that, I'm not good at this. I might as well just not even try it.
Well, yeah, I'm not that good at that, or I'm not as good as that person is.
Yeah.
That person's way more talented.
So I might as well not go for the promotion. I mean, because I already know that the person's going to get it.
Or let's say if you're a photographer and you shoot really great photography, but then you go to a show, you go to an art show, and you see a photographer right there, and you're like, oh my God, their work's so much better than me, and they just have access to so much more equipment, and they're just better, they have a better eye. I knew that this wasn't gonna work. I knew that I could never take this to the next level. I knew that I could never be a fine artist. I mean, I might as well go back to doing what I did, and it can be hard because this world is filled up with people that have talent.
Yes.
However, when we don't actually recognize our own talent, that's a problem. And that's when we've actually kind of just put ourselves last, because we have a tendency at that point in time to do what? We only capitalize on the weaknesses. The weaknesses become our capitalization.
Right.
We walk into every situation carrying our weaknesses on our shoulders.
Well, you know who that reminds me of, don't you?
Oh, yes.
The ex-coworker from hell, which this is our shameless plug segment, Ashley. If out there listening, if you wanted to hear past episodes or perspectives where I talk about the coworker from hell or any other issue that might be on your mind, where would I go to do that?
AshleyBurgess.com. You could go to Spreaker, or you could go to iTunes as well.
Awesome.
Also, you can check out any new shows, and any of the past shows, on cerebralstudios.com, which is cool too. And
Cerebral Studios.
Cerebral.
Yeah, easy for you to say.
Cerebral. It's all Cerebral Studios, Ashley. And alltexasmusic.com as well.
Awesome.
So you can check out all of our episodes there, which is really, really cool. And we're doing some really great things. And yeah, I mean, it's true. We capitalize on those weaknesses. I've done it. Haven't you done? I've done it. I've done it a lot.
Of course.
I've done it.
Who hasn't? I think your point is that some people go through life, depending on them.
Oh, well, yeah. Some people always open the door with their weaknesses, like the things that they're just not good at, and they kind of come from that deficit, and so they basically get kind of bullied around by everybody.
Right.
They get bullied around, and then they find people. It always happens that those same people find people that plague on them.
Yes. And
exploit them even more, so that all they do is to continue
it's almost
to see
like
their weaknesses.
the law of the jungle, right? I mean, the predator and the prey just seem to find each other.
Yes. Because it's like they have it written down on their forehead. This is what I'm looking for.
Right.
By the way, I'm looking for somebody to put me down on a constant basis. Does anybody know anybody that can do that for me?
Right.
I like to be punished. I like to be, this and that. I'm looking for that. And there's a lot of people like that, and I see that a lot, especially in my practice. And sometimes people get so integrated and inundated in the process that they can't stop it. And sometimes they end up not wanting to stop it because it's fulfilling something.
I was going to say, it's almost like they get their self-worth out of being the victim.
And it's not their self-worth. Yeah, what they're doing is they're getting some sort of. So, for example, anyway.
Now we're getting into psychology or psychiatry, whatever you want to call it, and that's something that's kind of way over my head. But
Well, but the thing, a lot of times people just get into the situation where they're just like, for example, if you've been unhappy, and you know this, Bill, just from knowing people in your life, when somebody's been unhappy for a very long period of time. There's a situation where they have to let go of being like that and accept the fact that they can be another way. And it's really hard to let go of that because, first of all, you have to acknowledge the fact that you're holding on to it, right?
Right.
Then you have to figure out why are you holding on. So I have clients that come in all the time that the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I'm sick, I'm this, I'm that. And they're looking for me to say, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? and they want this
poor little thing.
Yeah, poor little thing. And the sad thing is that for me, I don't want to be the victim. Okay, when anytime I've ever said something like I don't feel good, and somebody goes, "Oh, you poor little thing," it makes me want to backslap somebody. Okay, I mean, like just slap the crap out of them. You know what I mean? Like poor little thing. I'm a poor little thing.
Like you just want to snap the jab.
Well, it's like now you're calling me poor and little, and now you're calling me a thing. So now I become poor little thing instead of me.
You're not even human anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, isn't that funny? Like people don't realize what they say too. But the funny thing is that it's all subconscious. So somebody comes in with the sob story, and instead of "Oh, you beautiful woman" with the sob story, it's more like "You poor little thing that can't do nothing. It's so sad."
That's a good Southern accent there.
Was it?
Yeah, you got the Belle of the County, the Scarlett O'Hara thing going there.
Ashley, darling. It's just,
fiddle-dee-dee, poor little thing.
Poor little thing. Oh, bless her heart. It's true, though, because a lot of times people think that they're getting something out of it when in actuality they're being put down. However, they're getting people's sympathies. They're getting attention. Okay, and so at least to some degree, it's almost like the kid that's getting the negative attention all the time from mom and dad. However, they're getting something. Okay, so they're getting attention. They don't care how they get it. Okay, and so some people are at that level where they're so far removed from getting good attention that all they do is they just know that they're getting something. It's like Pavlov's law, a rule where you get the food, the animal. What is it? What would the animal do? Like push the button in order to get the food, or whatever they were doing. And so it was constant. And so they know that every time they start with a sob story, they're going to get a response.
Right.
Okay, and at least they're getting a response is what they want. But they haven't been there for so long to realize what a really good interaction is because they don't allow that to happen anymore. And in treatment, it's really hard once you get somebody to have a breakthrough and realize there's another way, and then they see the other way, it's almost like they want to slide back into where they were because it's so uncomfortable that it's comfortable. It's just where they want to be at. And it takes a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy to really work on that and to get somebody to
say that again.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
Google it.
Yeah, Google it. It's pretty good stuff. It really helps people rethink and work through painful and fearful situations, especially dealing with PTSD. And a lot of times people don't realize that PTSD isn't just for like military officials. And military people that have come back from the war. PTSD can happen as a child. I mean, depending on
just basically any traumatic event.
Right. Yeah. Very traumatic event. And you have to work through those events.
Which is what the T in PTSD stands for, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Syndrome. Yeah, syndrome. Yeah,
syndrome, okay.
Syndrome, yeah. So it's like, it's post-traumatic stress syndrome, and then you have stress syndrome, and then you have, let's see what else you have. And you could just have, like, I think it doesn't always have to be PTSD. It could be even something that wasn't that rough, but it could be something that really holds you back because it's something you remember every time you think about something. So that could be like the crutch. So in the case of capitalizing on your weaknesses, you could have somebody that had put themselves out there, created something, put it out there. They got no feedback, or on the opposite, really negative feedback. And then all they can remember is when they did that time, what happened. And how putting themselves out there got them this negative feedback, which caused them this pain. And then I don't want to feel this pain anymore. I don't want to deal with it anymore. So I'm just not going to put myself out there anymore. Because if I do it, it's going to happen again. And so when we finally allow ourselves to realize that we are capitalizing on our weaknesses, at the same time, even if we don't realize it, we see everyone else as being smarter. Everyone else is being happier and better than us. Faster, better, stronger. And when we see people like that they seem to have everything, as we're capitalizing at the same time on our weaknesses, putting ourselves last, and overlooking our strengths, we have a self-defeating prophecy right here. We've created stress and anger and personal resentment in our life based on how we feel about ourselves. And yes, that does come from childhood, Bill. As well as you can actually create it in adulthood. It can be created, but more so it comes from childhood where we have insecurities. And because it's hard to matriculate a negative thought process, it takes a long time to create that.
Right.
It does. It's a lot easier to create. It's a lot easier to create a negative thought process than it is a positive thought process. But at the same point in time, It's so hard to revert something that's been around for so long because you have to let go of things. And especially in our childhood can be very difficult for a lot of people. And if you have just like 1 or 2 or 3 situations that happen that really hurt your feelings or really upset you, you're going to be capitalizing on those weaknesses. So remember, we're going to talk about the realization of our perception, the way we perceive things, the way that our perceptions actually color our life. So stay tuned because Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. We'll be back in 2 shakes.
I could lift you up.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
I can show you what you want to see and take you where you want to be.
Get in here and give us your perspective. We're listening. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. You know, we're talking tonight about finding self-worth and understanding where that comes from. And right before the break, I was talking about how a lot of times when we have that self-defeating prophecy, we have a tendency of capitalizing on our weaknesses, right? As well as seeing everyone else as being smarter, happier, and better than we are. It's just the way of it. It's the way it is. That perception is an interesting thing. And it's interesting until we realize that our perception really defines how we see the world. We don't understand. We don't realize that that's not the truth. We have an assumption that what we see is true. What we think is true. And however, normally that's not the case when it comes to other people. It just isn't. We make large assumptions based on with no facts and just look at something and decide what that means to us. However, a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, using your eyes is not the most efficient way of being able to size up a situation. Our eyes can deceive us. Why do they deceive us? Not because it's not that they're not working correctly. It's because we interpret what we see a certain way based on what we want to see. And that's what's important about perception.
And hence the old saying, you see what you want to see.
That's all we ever see. So it's interesting how before we don't realize this. So think about this. When I was younger, I would go through the process and perceive things a certain way, and I would assume that's the truth. And when that would happen, I would make myself feel lesser. I would feel less worthy. I would feel behind the 8 ball. I would see all my weaknesses. And one day, I started realizing that a lot of what I was seeing is it's my personal perception based on what I want to see, based on the way that I manipulate what I see in my own mind. And it's also part of the ego having a heyday, putting you down. And I know a lot of people don't realize the ego is really our internal critic, our inner critic that likes to hold us back and tell us how bad we are and how much we suck. And it does it in good ways because it shows us how everybody else's life is better than ours. Okay? And the way it does is it shows us that way by our perception, what we see. And so when we finally come across the path and we realize that things aren't as they seem, okay? Things aren't as we see them to be. We then open our eyes and our minds and our bodies to a different scenario of life. We start listening. We start paying more attention. We start looking at body language. We start sensing things from our heart instead of our brains. And then guess what happens? We start realizing that a lot of those things that we perceive aren't real. And once you topple over 2 or 3 perceptions of yours, it's amazing. all of a sudden you begin to realize that the way we perceive things completely color our life. And that's when you're able to start looking at things. So first off, we look at how we perceive people in general. How do we perceive the people at our work? How do we perceive the people in our neighborhood? Okay.
Right.
And you look at these people and you go, before you realize that your perception's coloring things, you just see what you want to see. Oh, John, my neighbor's got it all together. Okay, I need to be more like John because my life is just sucking wind right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he's got on top of everything. Or you go to work and you see the person that's just like, everything's perfect, suits on perfect. They look like, you see the picture of them and their wife and their kids on the table, on their desk, and it's like the most beautiful family you've ever seen in your life. I mean, it makes you want to throw up sometimes, right? It's like the woman's got the blonde hair, the big boobs, and the blue eyes, and she's...
Legs for days.
Oh, yeah, she's smiling, and you got the two kids that are identical twins.
2.5 kids.
Well, you got the two identical children that are like the best-looking little boys you've ever seen in your life that'll probably end up being models in their modeling career before they go to, Harvard.
Yeah, and then become billionaires.
Yeah,
yes.
you know what I'm saying? And so you're over there like visualizing and you're like thinking about how, your wife just had a kid and how she has rollers on all the time and how the baby came out of the womb with some sort of rash. You're still trying to figure that all out, but it's supposedly a baby rash and it will go away. And you look at all these problems and you're like, your kid's taking a poop every 5 minutes. You got your wife is just, is literally
keeping you up all night.
Oh yeah, is arguing with you the whole time. And you're just like looking at them going, yeah, life must be a lot better here. You know what I mean? I mean, this is the life. And we perceive people when we take a step back and realize that we're seeing this picture and we're seeing that a professional photographer had to come in to take that picture because everybody's in it in the family. It's completely lit. It's obviously in a studio. So they've all gotten ready. They've all had hair. They've probably had hair and makeup done. Okay, and you start taking back and peeling off the different layers of perception. And you take off layer 1. Oh, this wasn't just a candid shot. Layer 2. Oh, this was an actual setup time and a studio to do these shots. Layer 3. Oh, this was probably the best one out of 1,000 shots. And level 4. You see what I'm saying?
And, here's a secret to the photo industry, folks. Photoshop.
Oh, yeah.
The
wife has no lines or wrinkles. The wife will have no lines or wrinkles.
Airbrush.
No lines or wrinkles. I know how to use all those tools.
All those hot Sports Illustrated swimsuit models, they don't really look that good in real life.
I have a friend of mine that was one of the biggest photographers for Sports Illustrated. And he could actually take a photo. Like, he would take photos in Maui. And he could actually add clothing to them. Real clothing. Like, he would put on, like, surfer pants on them. Could add clothing without you even knowing it, or take it all off and just have bikini.
Yep.
He can create legs.
Yep.
Knees.
Yep.
Stomachs. Abs. And he showed me. I mean, this is one of the top people on Photoshop. Period. But yeah, you can create anything. I mean, I can make anybody look good
with digital photography and computer editing. Suites nowadays. I mean, you barely even need a human model.
No, I mean, and you can create anything. And so when you peel back these layers of perception, so now you got all those things. You realize that it's the best photograph out of 1,000. You realize that there's hair and makeup. You realize that this was a set gig in a studio. You realize that the kids had to be on their best behavior. You realize they probably drugged the kids. You realize all these things when you come up to it, and then you start realizing, you know what? The guy at work probably doesn't have the best family. And maybe I'm being pretty hard on myself, I mean, real hard on myself. Yes, Bill?
Do you mean to tell me that the grass is not always greener on the other side?
No, it's not. It's really not.
In fact, I'll bet you there's even some YouTube videos out there.
Oh, I bet there are.
Where would I go to find those,
You could go to my YouTube channel.
Wow.
To Ashley Burgess.
Yet another shameless plug, folks.
They just did a commercial for, like, a weed company. Actually, it's a fertilizer company that's using that whole concept where the neighbor talks to the other neighbor, and then he goes, man, I wish my lawn looked like that. And the guy's like, the grass isn't always greener.
Okay. Yes. I know it. Yes. I've seen it.
They just started that.
I've seen it.
Because of us, Bill. Because of us.
High five.
High five. Woo!
There you go.
We actually did it. That's awesome. So then we realize about the job. So that you also perceive things about people's jobs, right? We perceive different concepts about the job. We perceive different concepts about how great it must be to have that job. And that's a big deal too, because it's not until you really see it in action. So that's the really good way that I can describe that actual perception is the way that people see my life. This is a very good one. So
yours or
mine?
Okay,
my life. People, they syndicated talk show host, therapist, life coach. Some people call societal diva. We'll go past that. Anyway, point is that people think that I'm on the top of the world all the time. They think it's just the greatest job ever, and that, anybody could do it,
right.
But that it's so glamorous and all this glamour. And I don't know about the glamour part. I don't know where that went to or where you get that. But
well, you can be very stylish.
I can be.
Yes.
Thank you. But the whole glamour thing. I mean, I think they think. So I think that the perception is that the limo comes and picks me up at my house and takes me to the studio, where there are 5 or 6 chilled Smart Water bottles right there, with a thing of fruit, with a full meal.
Because your personal assistants, plural.
With craft services is out there. Bill's getting powdered up on his face while I'm about to sit in the makeup chair, and we're going to do this. That's not how it's rolling right now.
Get your mani-pedi.
Yeah, while I'm yelling at somebody on the phone about getting their butts to the studio. Right. Yeah, I really do think, and I've actually had people tell me, I bet your life is so glamorous and all this stuff, and they'll be like, what are you doing right now? I'm folding clothes. Or I am folding towels.
Or cleaning up the mess from your dishwasher.
I'm cleaning up the mess from my dishwasher.
Because the water's leaking into your downstairs neighbor's
Or I'm running
light.
to the studio because I just found out that the hot water heater at the studio blew up.
Uh-huh.
So there's all these things that people don't really think about. And so their perception makes my life very grandiose. And it makes it unattainable. And it makes for frustration. When in actuality, there shouldn't be any frustration, because my life is a life. It's a regular life. And a lot of times we just like to have these perceptions up there, creating these lofty thought processes about how great so-and-so's life has to be. And with Instagram and with Facebook, it has helped create perception equals reality. It has made our perception become an absolute reality. And before we go to break, I want to talk a little example about that. I had a friend of mine that was in Florida recently visiting his grandparents. And when he was leaving, he posted a picture of a private jet. And he posted the picture of the private jet, and it was a jet company that rented jets. On the next picture that he posted a private jet picture of the private jet, the inside of the private jet, and you see like a bottle of wine sitting there on a table. And you see also the jet, you see the red carpet, like outside, on the tarmac, right? And he said, heading back home to Dallas, right?
Okay.
Anyway, the next day he looks at his Facebook, and there's like 150 to 200 comments about, when did you get the private jet? Okay. So he goes, why would you think I would get those comments? I go, what do you mean? Why do you think you got those comments? He goes, it's not my plane. It was pictures out of the internet. I took 2 pictures out of the internet and I posted them. It was not my plane. And I go, well, I knew that because I know you. But they all think it's true because they think it's factual evidence because there's a plane there. And so you just created this reality for people to perceive, being that they're like, oh, look at him. He's got his private plane. Oh, look at him. And just filled right into it, went right into the scenario. And I said, you knew what you were doing. Anyways, stay tuned. When we return to be talking more about the realization of our perception and how to really recognize when we're on autopilot. Stay tuned, because Perspective with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in 2 shakes.